Hello. um, Good evening. Um, Please, before any other thing else, right? I would want you to keep calm, just relax for what I'm going to show you today. But before that, I want you to click the notification bell. Okay? Make sure you subscribe for me also. It's very, very important. Watch the video to the end, and you're going to have a feel of whatever that it takes to be you. Okay, my name is Obedewakusi, and this channel is basically for you to know how and when to do things. And as a matter of fact, make sure that you know when to implement your ideas. This is basically what this channel is all about, right? And so today we have a very nice episode for you. Uh, and I would want to talk about um, kind of defy the odds of the 10,000 hour theory, right? And it was done by Malcolm Gladwell. I mean, those of us who have read the book, you would, sigh with me that the book is quite interesting. It is very, very so. Let's follow the lead. Let's move on with whatever that we would want to talk about. And so I had the privilege of being invited to speak at a conference, right? And it was actually a youth conference, a 3-day conference. And so I walked into this conference. I was the penultimate speaker, which means there was one speaker after me. And I walked to this conference, and my title was How Malcolm Got It Wrong. And so what I actually spoke about the speech was in the book, The Outlines. Malcolm Gladwell, who is without question one of the foremost thinkers of our time, speaks about the 10,000 hour theory, right? And he's right. And so if you think about the premise of the ideology of the 10,000 hour theory, you would realize that Malcolm Gladwell referenced somebody else's work. So it wasn't really his work. He referenced the scientists who studied athletes, more specifically gymnasts, tennis players, etc. And the scientist was trying to answer a very interesting question. And the question was, what does it take to reach to the top 1% in any chosen field or industry, right? So in any chosen field or industry, what does it take to reap to the top 1%, really the peak of the summit? And so after almost 3 decades of studying, the scientists found that if you committed yourself to 10,000 hours of diligence, practice, and commitment, you had a better chance of becoming part of the top 1%. And it makes sense, doesn't it? So the greatest soccer players of our time, you hear stories about when they started playing the soccer when they were yay high, they were very small. The greatest golf players of our time, the greatest tennis players of our time, you hear stories about when they started playing the sport at a very young age. They were more committed than their peers, right? They spent more time doing it. Therefore, they became part of the top 1%. The theory of the top 1% is 100% correct, except that it makes one underlying assumption, right? That the sort of skills, competence, and tools you require to succeed don't change, right? And so, the great sport of tennis, for instance, over the past 3 decades, there have really been only two major rule changes. The first one was in the 90s when the WTA, the World Tennis Association, changed the rule. It used to hold in tennis that as you serve the ball, you had to have one foot on the floor. Now the WTA said you could serve and raise both feet. What an extraordinary change, right? The second one was change file leader one, and this one had a very great implication, right? Um, and this one is, you see within the court there is to be a specific line, right? Within that line, if you served the ball and the ball landed in, you had your point. If it landed outside, you were outside, and so they pushed that line to the next line, and then it changed the construct of the game. But the fundamental rules of the game hasn't materially changed, right? The layout of the court is exactly the same. Um, the tennis racket is exactly the same. The size of the ball is exactly the same. The way you serve it, the distance between which you serve, the way you serve it, they're all exactly the same. So for all intent and purpose, the structure of the game of tennis hasn't materially changed, right? And this is true too for most sports. And this is why, if you committed yourself to 10,000 hours of diligence, practice, and studying, you had a better chance of becoming part of the top 1%. Because The rules are all the same. I want you to take a moment and pause and think about it, right? Think about um, then our famous case study of Kumawood movies, right? Sooner or later, that's not what consumers wanted. Think about um, the businesses of um, Oxwagon, right? Oxbaron, sorry, getting really good at making Oxwagon wheels. Sooner or later, that's not what consumers wanted. Think about um, the business of Smith Corona, right? Um, getting really good at making typewriters. Sooner or later, that's what consumers wanted. So you can get really good at doing something that you are very good at it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's of value to the consumer, right? And so in our new age, our research shows us that 10,000 hours is important as a premise. But in the modern day, speed is more important than time spent. It doesn't follow that because you spent 2 decades doing something, an incumbent couldn't beat you, haven't done it for just 2 years. All they have to do is to learn at a rate faster than you are and then deliver value at a rate faster than you do. And so, in the modern day, speed is more important. Time spent, I'm afraid, not as important as it used to be. Bazaloa.